Welcome to Chronic Curiosity, where we have real conversations with real people, from everything to anything, in attempts to facilitate dialogue with our fellow humans, and hopefully your curiosity as well as ours. If you can withstand the show, we ask, most importantly, that you tell your friends and family, but also you can pick up some merch or just donate to the show at chronic-curiosity.com in USD or Bitcoin. If you feel so obliged, you can give us a good rating and follow on whatever podcast platform you so choose. But please feel free to reach out to us on the website or the socials, which can also be found on the website, chronic-curiosity.com. And here we go. I want to take a moment and officially apologize to Jessica Nolletti in this episode. As you'll hear in the very beginning, we had some technical difficulties. Thought we had them all figured out. Apparently we did not, and I didn't realize it until after the show was completed. So really appreciate Jess coming on and talking to us. She was a little bit reluctant, and somehow it was only her microphone that didn't get recorded properly. So she will sound a little funny because we had to do some little things in the back end. But her words were important, and wanted to make sure everyone was able to hear what she said. So there might be a little background noise. So I apologize for that. But thank you for joining us today, and thank you again to Craig and Jessica Nolletti. Here we go. All right, how about that? All right, there we go. Well, sometimes, hey, that's you should take an IT job. Did you turn it off? Did you unplug it and plug it back in yet? Isn't that what IT always tells you first?
Yep.
Like, yeah, I tried that. Craig.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming back on, man.
Yeah.
The first time you were on, you let it slip that you had something big coming.
Yeah.
And then I let my entire body slip for like 9 months because I was like, we got a gym coming.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I need to work out anywhere else?
Yeah.
How has that whole thing been going?
It was a ton of work up front, but it's been great. Like I enjoy opening gyms probably more than anything else. It's just cool to take a place that's used for something else or nothing at all and turn it into something people can come and find benefit from. So no, it's been great. I think we've been open 5 weeks now, and it's been good.
So that was like shortly after you talked to us that you'd like just gotten now you didn't have the building yet. So the period of, I mean, that's not long to do what you did, but it seems like most of the time you're like, well, I'm going to start doing this thing and we're going to see what happens. Did you see it all working out like you hoped it would? Or?
Yeah, it did come together pretty good. Like I thought. It costs a lot more money to do the renovations than I anticipated. But I'm okay with that because last 2 years I started looking more longer term, not really looking to try to make a quick buck, but just like, okay, 5-10 years from now, what do I want to be doing? And, so I consider it a success at this point. Got a lot of great people there, and the people that have come in so far to be part of the gym have been like your more serious gym people. They're not just like, oh, I'll try it out, because our gym's not cheap. It's probably more expensive one in town. But I feel like I provide a better service for people. So that's always been my direction, is like, hey, if you're into training, when you want to get started or you're serious about it, either one, I feel like we have something for you. So I feel pretty good about where we've gotten so far, and it just takes time to grow a gym. From my experience, it just isn't. You don't just flip the sign like a restaurant and it's flooded with people. Like, it just takes some time. So,
right. Yeah, I think saying there's something for everybody is overstatement.
Yeah.
How many square feet?
Yeah. 27,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So over half an acre
Yeah.
of just gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something for everybody.
I just needed room. Like that's with my gym in Ashland, I built it and I was like, I'll never fill this up. Well, that lasts about a year. So I'm like, let's go really big. And the whole thing was really strange how it worked out, but got a call from a friend. He said, "Hey, this building's going to be for sale. Do you want it?" I'm like, "No." Like, why? What makes you think I'm looking for a building? But it was just meant to be. And then a couple weeks later, I was like, let me check it out. And then, it's history from there. So it's just worked out well. Good location, good space, and it's still a work in progress, but pretty happy with how it's gone so far.
What changed your mind when you were like, no, not interested, and then you kind of checked it out and you're like,
I guess it's hard for me to it's weird because like when I'm awake, like I constantly think about the business, like the gym, like that's just so it's kind of a curse and a blessing at the same time, but like it's hard for me to like shut that off. So I guess when I heard there was a availability there for a gym, I'm like, man, that's a cool location. It's a big space. I know the Wooster community. So I guess I just couldn't stop thinking about that. And then, everything kind of fell into place. Everything worked out pretty well. So there was no big roadblocks or obstacles, I guess. And, I've always liked to have more than one gym.
yeah,
Like, I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of weird for a lot of people. If you're not opening like 10 gyms or whatever, most people stick with like one. But I've always just liked to have multiple things going on. It's something to keep me busy and keep me working. And I like that.
bro, have you thought about challenging the other gyms in the area to a dodgeball game?
I mean, it's an option. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
We dodgeball warm up at CrossFit sometimes over in Ashland. So
gonna dodge some wrenches first.
right. Yeah.
Start throwing around 45-pound plates.
Yeah.
Frisbees.
Yeah.
I feel like you could.
Yeah.
Have you always been like that with a business idea? If something just gnaws at you and you're just like, whew, I gotta pursue this.
I think the only time I've ever had that was with gyms.
Okay.
I don't have a desire. I've admired a lot of other businesses. Like I would love to open my own like place where people could play live music.
Mhm.
That's something I really do enjoy seeing is live music
Barbecue and
of
bourbon.
any time. Yeah. And but I don't know a lot about that. So I've admired it, and maybe if the stars align someday, that'll be my next venture. But people ask me all the time, do I want to franchise a gym and stuff? And I don't have a desire to do that because I like to be connected. I still like to be able to walk in and see what's going on. I just don't feel like I get it. I could probably make a bunch of money if I franchised or did whatever, but that's not really my goal. Like I like to be able to walk in and be hands-on with stuff and know the equipment that I have and upgrade it and make the best possible facility I can for my community. I just wouldn't want to water that down,
Yeah.
So I guess that's where I'm at for now is, I like to enjoy my time. I've known some other very successful business owners that owned multiple locations with different businesses. And, they talk about going to work every day and like they're dealing with employee issues and things like that. I'm like, that doesn't sound fun. Like that sounds like you took it too far in my mind. I like to stay more connected. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Cool.
It sounds like because the first conversation we had, you told us about being a brain fart. Wow, I can't even think of the word.
Like an
Like-
entrepreneur?
No,
Like a
doing his job when he actually had like a job.
PO?
Yeah, a parole officer. Thank you. Sometimes it just
Yeah.
goes out, but even then, like you saw, it was the job that got you, not like the people, and then connecting to your community and doing all those different things. And you've always it seems like most of the stuff you've done, people are like, That's not really how people normally do that.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, this is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's seemed to be working out pretty well for you in
Yeah.
plenty of different areas.
Yeah, I think that only really works if you're really passionate about what you do. Because, like, I've never been one to be like pay for advertising and stuff like that. And I know most businesses, like, they pay for advertising, which I'm just now getting into. Like, I'm going to start doing that. But I think if you're just really passionate about what you're doing, I think if you keep it small, like a small business, people buy into that. Where, like, if I tried to open some other type of business and my heart wasn't in it, I think people see that and they're like, he's not really about that. He's just doing this to make some money and stuff. That's my perspective, I guess. And so I've always just wanted to stay connected with what I'm doing, and I so far it's been successful. Like, people appreciate that. They can see what I'm doing. They see me in there actually doing the work and moving equipment and then working out there. I think if I was just like somebody that just came in and checked on things and wasn't actually involved, I don't think it would be as successful. I just think the more I get into business, the more I kind of realize, like, if you benefit your community, like, you'll be successful in what you're doing. And if you try to look past that and try to just run for the money, I don't think that would work as well.
I think I don't know if you mentioned it on one of the shows before or if it was just in a conversation we had. But you mentioned before where it was like it took you a little bit of time to realize that, throughout life, I think it was, you said like in your mid 20s or whatever, it was like, I don't have to do life like everybody thinks you have to just do it, and you can set your own path and you can kind of be passionate about certain things and do certain things a little different way. And, I made the realization, it was like, oh yeah, like it took me probably almost till I was 30, where I was like, oh, like, wait a minute, I don't have to do this one thing this one way all the time. And I don't have to like do this job or take this thing or do this just because it's what is the quote unquote best thing for me according to society or everything else. It's like, oh, okay, like now we've changed the rules of the game. And it seems that that's, maybe more people are realizing that, but it seems like you guys kind of got on that a little early.
Yeah, I think, in going through school, like, I look back on it now, I'm like, man, no one ever mentioned anything about opening a business. Ever. It was never, ever mentioned. And it took me like 10 years after high school to realize, like, wait, like, I can do something on my own. Because I started seeing other people and seeing what they were doing. I'm like, well, I want to do that. Like, I don't really want to work for somebody else. I'd rather just work for myself. And, it took me a while to kind of snap out of it and realize, like, the reality of the world. And, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Like, being able to just, work as hard as you want to whenever you want to work. And then you benefit from that, where, there's nothing wrong for working for an hourly wage. That's, it's just fine. But so, if you're motivated to do more and you're willing to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and work until the end of the, 8 o'clock at night, I think there's a benefit to be had there.
It's something different. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, I keep wanting to talk to you, but I don't want to bring you into it. I don't want to pressure you. I think it's one of the biggest things that we've noticed about, obviously what you do as a business owner. But it obviously transitioned into your family as well. And that's it's really encouraging to see people doing things differently in different fashions, just because they feel like this is the right move for, this is the community, for me personally, my marriage and my family and my kids and all these different things, like all these different pieces of life, like they fit together. And at least me, I always kind of grew up like kind of thinking about all these things, very almost categorized and separated. I guess my brain's kind of good at like separating things, and compartmentalizing them, but sometimes like you have to realize that even though this thing can be compartmentalized, maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe these things should interconnect. Maybe, owning your own business or running a business or going to work should connect with your community.
Mm.
Maybe, that should bleed through your family as well. And whether it's, homeschooling them or, growing a garden together, doing something as a family that we've gotten so far from doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've become so, I don't know if it's the technology or if it's the systems that are in place, whatever it is, but it's like we've been so disconnected. Growing up, I felt like I was one of those last generations that it was like eat at the dinner table kind of family.
Mm.
A lot of families don't do that because they're so busy, because they have their job, they have their, executive office job they have to do. They work 60, 70 hours a week, but they're never home. Or whatever it is, it seems like we're on an exponential path of like separating from each other. And I see more people, I think we mentioned it before we started talking, that, more people are interested. Have you talked about more people being interested in homeschooling and all these different avenues of running a business, but not necessarily like running a business just to make money. It's more people are starting to wake up and go, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I doing this? And why am I doing it this way? Like, most of the time people ask themselves that, they're like, I don't know, because this is the way you're supposed to live life. You work, you mow the grass on Saturdays, you go to barbecues on Sundays, and then you talk about how angry you are that it's going to be Monday and I gotta go back to work. Like, that seems like, is that the American dream now?
Yeah.
Like,
it's interesting you say that, because like I told Jess a week ago or so, I was like, I try to keep Sundays open so I stay home and be with the family and stuff. But I said it's one of the it's kind of hard for me because I like to be busy. I like to feel productive. It's hard for me to sit at home and not feel like I'm doing something to forward the business or our family or things like that. But I understand the importance of it. And so like when you own a business, you don't dread Mondays at all. You like it because it's like, man, it's another week that I get to start and improve what I'm doing. So when I see people talk about how much I hate Monday or hate work, I'm like, man, if that's what your thoughts, you need to reevaluate what you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with working for somebody. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But like, if you hate it, there's something wrong with that. You need to pursue what you're passionate about. And I just sometimes wonder too, like I encounter so many people through the gyms and stuff that have so many they're intelligent people, they're hardworking, and I'm like, what could you do if you did something on your own? How could you benefit this community? But I think the training and the education system, they direct people to be like employees. That's kind of the direction that at least that's what I gathered through school. Is like, I was always told, you work for somebody, you got to listen to what they say, all this stuff. And, I just look at people sometimes, I'm like, man, you need to do your own business. Like, whatever you might want to do, just go do that. What would our community look like if the education system was designed to push people towards, hey, when you get out of school, go ahead and do something on your own for a while. If it works out, fantastic. If it doesn't, then you can go do something else. I just wonder what the community would look like if, I think the best example is when you drive down south of 30 toward Kidron and Berlin and stuff. Every single house has a sign out front. They have a business of something.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, that's amazing. You need something, just drive down the road. You'll find somebody that can help you out. And I love that. Like, so I interact with them. I have different businesses I interact with down there, and it's fantastic. You walk in and the owner's there and you say, can you do this for me? Yep. We'll do it for you. That's how you become a self-sufficient community. Everybody there works for each other and helps each other out. And I think that's how the world should be. You shouldn't have to order stuff from overseas and things. It's like, let's just do it here. So I think that would be the ultimate dream is, have a business on every corner. I just think the world would be a better place and people be happier in general, and you get things accomplished and the economy would be good, and everyone would be happier, I think.
Yeah, there's something to the sense of the lack of community that a lot of places feel, a lot of people feel nowadays. I think nothing more, highlighted that than COVID, where we were all locked down. We've talked about that before, where everybody was so isolated that like we saw, we've talked about the spikes of, mental health and all these different things where it's like, you realize, and myself, a self-proclaimed, I don't even go as far as I'd like to be isolated. But you realize like so much of that's not good for you. I guess like that's what they say, like the worst thing you can do for somebody is put them in solitary confinement, because it's torture for a human being just to sit there by themselves. And I did the same thing just recently around here. I think it was on at one point to go get stuff for our chickens that we've finally got up and running. But I was going through an Amish community, and it was like door after door. It was like, we have this here and this here, this here, furniture and eggs and food and vegetables and all these different things like at different houses. It's like, well, I know where I'm going to go if I, need something, because these people have been living like this forever.
Yeah.
Like that's how, like, depending off of each other, like being able to trade and barter and all these, it's fascinating to think about that there's still communities. And I guess maybe not necessarily take them for granted, but we kind of forget about them because they're so close to it. Like I grew up, knowing Amish people and working with Amish people. So it's like, oh, like we don't realize how special that is, even though we were acknowledging it right now. But like in 2022 in America, like that there are communities that are fully self-sustaining if the electricity were to go out tomorrow. Like, guess what? Their cars, they got their buggies break down, but like, oh, you don't have gas prices. We don't care. Like, obviously, there's some that like deal with like, they use Bobcats and diesels and, whatever for occasional things, but they're the people that are going to be hurting the absolute least. The worst things get. It's like, maybe that's not such a bad, way to look at life. After all, like I love my AC. And I love ice cream and being able to keep it cold, but there's something to it, like that we're kind of missing this piece of life,
right?
And I guess why not attempt to at least give the way I look at it is like, why not attempt to at least give our kids the option? Like you talked about earlier, like in school, like no one told me there are other options out there. No one told me, like I felt I either had to be an accountant, an engineer, a construction worker, or a doctor or a lawyer. And I'm like, everybody's like, I remember thinking that in my head, like, man, like there's just not very many jobs out there. What am I going to do? Like, I don't know. Like, and you don't realize like there's a lot out there that no one ever said, hey, I had not one teacher be like, hey, you have different options. You could do something different. You could own a business. Like,
yeah. And it's not the teacher's fault, because all the teachers at the school that I had, I liked them. I didn't have any problem with them. And all the teachers my kids had in school, they were fine. I know most of them. But I think it's just like they view the world smaller. And, I think there would be benefit to having a better variety of people to interact with the kids as they're growing up, and showing them like, look, there's a lot of different options you have as an adult and ways that you can support your family. And I just think that's the biggest missing piece is you go through school and it's almost like an assembly line, like get your grades and do this. Cause some of the most successful people I know, and I know you heard this before, but literally if I listed off some of them, like my top 5 most successful people, they didn't go to college and some of them didn't even graduate high school. Not to say I'm not bashing education, go to college, do whatever you want to do if that's what you want to do. But there's plenty of other ways to be successful in life without having to go through the status quo education.
right. Yeah. Like if you want to be a doctor,
Yeah.
Great. We need doctors.
You're gonna
but
need to go to
please
college. Yeah.
Go to college for that because, I don't need someone that's
Going into the family business.
going into
What do you mean? Your dad's a doctor?
heart surgeon.
Just start up.
Yeah,
You'll be fine.
Yeah, no, go to school for that, please, because we need those too. But
Yeah.
it's I guess that's for me. It was that there's options out there. Like I don't have to follow a certain path, and it's.
So you mentioned your kids' teachers. So what year did you start homeschooling then?
Oh, she's like, don't you do this to me.
Batter up.
I don't remember.
If you're not
You put
watching
the-
this, Craig's wife Jess is also here. So
And she put the headphones on.
she did. So she's.
You gotta get your face up.
So I didn't mean to throw
It
you in.
wasn't me. I didn't do
figured
it.
Craig would know, but
I forget.
Really letting you
Craig's
do
like, no, I don't.
I'm not good with numbers or years, birthdays, or nothing.
Well, when COVID started, we gave the kids the option to go back to school in the fall.
Mm.
I told them I'd be happy to homeschool them. I had homeschooled Dominic for 2 years in kindergarten, which technically nobody knows this, but you don't actually have to send your kids to kindergarten. They don't have to start school till first grade in Ohio. But I homeschooled him for 2 years, got pregnant with Lily, and then I was sick, so through the pregnancy. So I ended up sending them back to school for a couple years, and they did fine. They have great teachers. I think we have a good community around here. But then when they had to start wearing masks and the isolation thing, which Craig and I did not agree with, I gave them the option, and they talked to some friends to see who was going to be in their class and decided they wanted to go back for that first year. But it was definitely getting to them, and I could tell there were things that happened with Dominic. He just was not handling it well because he's coming home to us and we're telling him, we're still wearing masks. We don't want to wear masks. You shouldn't have to wear a mask. And then we're sending him to school saying, well, you got to go to school and wear a mask, even though we gave him the option. So I was like, let's stop this. So we pulled him out. It would have been the end of whatever the school year.
Like March of 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we did this whole school year at home. So this is the first full year that they've both been at home with me.
And he just finished 5th grade?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
That's exciting. We're planning on, as of right now, we're planning on doing the same thing. So it's like, but we realize like there's not a lot of rules around these things. Like when you really dig into it, it's like, oh, like what are the rules of homeschooling? Well, you just have to let the state or the school district know like the week of. And I'm like, well, really? Like, okay. And then like at the end of the year, it's like, oh, they just have to have, some paper, somebody's got to do this thing. Like, I'm like, well, that's not that bad. I'm like, well, this could be doable.
It's bad for someone who feels like there has to be a ton of structure. Like, I don't want to mess up my kid. And I like structure and I like rules. Yeah, right. Like, I don't know. Like, I know overall, like, it's what we want to do because she really wants to do it and, like, we're excited to do it. But, like, we've got into some, not arguments, but disagreements because he's like, babe, it's going to be fine. Like, there's really not even that many requirements. And I'm like, she has to do, like, paperwork and stuff, right? Like, we're going to have to give her, like, packets and stuff. Where do we get that stuff? And he's like, that's just busy work that school gives. And I'm like, yeah, we need to do that. And he's like, no, you don't. And I'm like, I don't even know where to start with any of this. And it's so overwhelming. But it's exciting that it's just like, we can do this. And she really wants to. But
I think one of the biggest things I noticed, because I don't do the school with them, like I'm around when they're doing it and stuff. And it took a while to kind of get them in check because Dominic and Macy were both kind of bucking the system a little bit at first with Jess, like they didn't want to really do it. But then they seem to fall in line, like they get it now. They understand what they have to do. But one of the biggest things I noticed, and like I think this is worth noting, is that Dominic was at an age when he was at school, he started coming home and he had just a different attitude. You could tell he's picking stuff up from other kids. He has a different attitude. He was growing his hair out like below his eyes, and just it was just a weird thing. And as soon as we pulled him out of there, Of course, we have normal issues with kids, but we're not having to fight the weird attitudes that they're picking up from school. Like, that's one of the biggest things I've noticed is like our kids are they are acting like we do. They're duplicating what we do and how we act and how we talk. And they're not learning all of these undesirable things from kids at school. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed is like with our kids, we're not really having to try to break these weird attitudes and language and things that they're learning at school anymore because they're with us. Like that's what they're learning is they're learning from us. And I don't know. I wouldn't trade that for anything. Because you hear all the time about teenage kids and stuff just kind of going off on their own and the parents are like lost. They don't know what to do because like, that's not how I act. My kid's completely different than me.
Right.
And I don't know. I think that's kind of where we're at with society is kids learn things from other people they think is cool and that's what they're going to do. And it's like, that's not how you were raised. And I think that just kind of, the culture just kind of deteriorates from there. And we do have some Amish friends and I've always admired the way they are. Cause the kids, I've never met an Amish kid that's anything but respectful. Mm. And it's because they're being raised directly by their parents and their direct community. So I think that's an unspoken benefit that we've seen, at least, I don't know if Jess would agree, but maybe she sees more attitude from them than I do, but I'm like, that kind of stopped as soon as they came out of school. Like they started to adapt to more to like us rather than their friends. So I'm not a big person on like your grades and I don't even know how they did in school. I mean, I guess they did fine or she would have told me, but I'm just like,
she's like, at least he admits it.
But I like the attitudes that our kids have about it and the work they put in.
Right.
I don't really have much concern. I don't care if you get an A or a C. I really don't care. As long as you're learning what you got to learn. But the fact that we're not having to fight those weird attitudes and weird desires that they had when they were in school, I think that's a pretty big benefit for us and them,
Well, that was one of our biggest concerns because like before, like our daughter loved going to school, like loves human interaction, loves people, just loves talking to everybody. Like, so it was like, well, this is like one of the reasons that like we never even thought about it was like she loves school, like loves being there, loves learning, loves all that because only child doesn't have a ton of interaction all the time with other kids. Like we're starting to find kids that are close that live close to us as she's getting older and able to do more things. But it was like she started coming home. It's like, she went through a time period where she was like every once in a while she would do or say those things. You're like, where did you pick that up? And then it slowly turned into just like she came home and was like, how was school? Like this school. And it was like, well, what do you mean? Like you love going? She's like, I don't know. And it was like, all right, well, something's wrong here. So it's like, we want for her to experience all different types of people and personalities and, experiences. But like you said, like sometimes like I went to public school all the way through. Like sometimes public school interactions and things that happen there, like, I'm okay on my kid missing some of those things because you realize it's just, we have a great school system really. And the teachers and all the staff has been great to us. But like, guess what? Like some people just don't have great home lives and I can't fix their home life. But when we're sending our kid to school and like the interaction is disrupting her life, it's like, well, you're going to meet people that are going to disrupt your life regardless, no matter what age you're at. But when she's, like you said, being forced to go to this place and do these things and sit down and oh no, you can't talk while you're in line, even though you're actually going out the door to go to recess. Like, well, what are we teaching her? Just sit down and shut up.
Follow rules.
And I love that. I saw a meme where it was, so it was something about 18-year-olds or whatever going into college. It's like, you expect these kids to like go out in the world when 3 months ago, they literally had to raise their hand to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, like, yeah, no wonder I was such a jerk at 20 because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Like I was never given any type of like real life, thrust into these real life experiences and taught how to like deal with things and realizing that, hey, there's more of a world out there than sit down and shut up.
Yeah. I look at, I train the high school kids at Ashland in football and stuff. And I always give them a life tip every day after we lift. I always give them something about real life. Like let's, because I was the same way. So I'm not bashing any high school or college kid. I was the same way. I was in high school. I was in college. I thought I knew everything I was doing. Thought I knew exactly what I was doing. I didn't need anyone else's input. But then you soon realize after that, like, you don't know nothing. So since that time, I've made some connections with some very successful people, in my opinion. And I have no issue calling them, texting them like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think about this? And every single time they're willing to talk to me. I think the last phone call I made with a guy, spent 45 minutes on the phone with him. And he literally guided me to this gym that I opened. Like that was the conclusion I came to after the phone call with him. And so I think there's so many successful people out there doing great things that I think, man, if I was in high school or college, you got to be talking to those people. Figure out what they're doing. Ask them, like, this is what I want to accomplish in life. How do you think I should get there? The knowledge is free. Like they will talk to you. But a lot of people that are very successful, they're not going to just openly broadcast what they're doing. But if you actually take your time and reach out to them, they'll help you out. They'll talk to you. And I try to encourage the kids to do that. Because when you're in high school and college, man, a million things are going to change between 18 and 25. You might figure out a whole lot of stuff.
At least I hope they do.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff.
Sake, yeah.
Now, there's some kids, I get it. You're dead set on something. You really like what you want to do, and you go do that, and you have a great career, great life. Absolutely. But I think there's a lot of kids out there that, for whatever reason, they get pushed into a certain career field, and they're not really happy with it. It's like, man, maybe that could have been changed if they would have interacted with the right people early on. So networking and just getting to know people that you admire and you want to pattern your life after, I think is so important. And I think that's like the biggest missing link is, I have different schools and teachers and stuff that want to come in. They want to bring their class in and talk to me about stuff. And I always love doing it. And it's so sad because I see it happen. I just had a class come in a few weeks ago and I was like, do you guys have questions? Do you have questions? I asked them like 50 times. Do you have questions? No one asked a question. And I can't help but wonder, like, they're just afraid to ask a question in front of their peers. And that's horrible. Like, I was just like, dude, you all have questions. Every single one of you have a question right now that you would ask me.
What
Guarantee
age
it.
group are you talking about?
High school.
Oh yeah. Well, I think also maybe they don't have questions because that's how I was for the longest. No, like I don't have any, like, because I've just been like you're like you said, we go back to you're almost being trained not to think, to follow, to obey, to do the things that you're supposed to do, to follow the rules, and that's it. Like I don't know if I picked it up somewhere what it is. I doubt I made it up. That would be ridiculous. But like, we should teach kids how to think, not what to think. Like, and not necessarily how to think like on specific things, but like how to use your brain, like how to be curious about things, how to, her brother-in-law the other day was telling me like, so his daughter is real young, but she's old enough to start doing things. Or not her brother-in-law. Did I say your brother-in-law? Sorry, my brother-in-law, her brother. So he started just like tasking his daughter with things with no like background, no like directions, nothing. Just, hey, do this. And she'll just be like, he's like, he took her, it took her 20 minutes to put the coffee pot and the coffee like filter basket back in the coffee pot. Cause like he's like, she figured out the coffee pot pretty easily. He's like, but she couldn't figure out how to get that like basket in there. He's like, finally he goes, it goes in the top. And like, she just like clunk, clunk, like, and then like it took her, like, he's like, hey, figure it out. Like, you know, and we're never taught how to figure things out and how to like try to actually, you know, use our brains.
Yeah.
So it's like, sometimes I don't know, a lot of people don't have questions because they're not thinking literally anything. They're just not.
What did you care about in high school?
Yeah. I mean, we don't need to talk about what I cared about in high school.
You're
Yeah.
busy thinking about sports. You're busy
Yeah.
thinking about your friends, who you're not friends with, who you like, who you don't like. That's what
You're not thinking about a career.
you're not
Yeah.
thinking about a career.
Yeah. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like zero.
I don't
clue.
think the kids realize how close they are to that. Like you're
Yeah.
right on the verge. You're on the cliff edge.
Yeah.
You've got to support yourself here real soon.
Well, because
Maybe.
like Fred said, they're still raising their hand to go to the bathroom. Like
Yeah,
there's,
and you want me to ask a question?
How
Like,
young do you feel?
yeah, they're not getting pushed out the nest.
You
Like,
can drive,
they're,
but you have to raise your hand.
yeah,
yeah.
like it blows my mind.
Yeah, so it's no wonder that like the you know, they're not, and then nothing's matching up for these kids. Once you're told to like, all right, go out and be an adult, it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean being like? What am I supposed to do?
I always thought it was interesting because I did not like school at all. Like I really did not like it whatsoever. And but I did it. I went every day and got good grades because that's what my parents wanted. But I always thought it was interesting because I went to Northwestern High School and then I went to Ashland University. Northwestern High School, you got to drive 20 miles an hour in front of the school, and the kids don't even cross the road. As soon as I went to AU, I was like, they don't have any speed signs, and I have to cross like 5 roads to get
all
to
over
class.
the place.
I'm like, what is going on? Like, how does that work? Literally, in May, you know, I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. I had to ask permission to do anything. And then in September, when I started AU, I had to find a place to park, cross 5 streets, find my classroom, and go in and sit down. I was like, there's a huge problem there, in my opinion. Like I don't know, they're still treating high school kids like elementary kids. And then you're an adult and wish you luck.
Right. Well, I think it's we're just taught to follow these rules. Well, these are the rules, and why, you know, when you ask somebody, well, why do we do it this way? Well, it's because that's the rules, or this is what we do, or whatever. It's like, well, no, I get that. Like, those are the rules, but why? Why are we doing it? Like, it's funny you mentioned that. I was driving down the road the other day, and I was out in rural-ish Ohio, and there was a career center building. You know, and typically it's grades 11 and 12. And it was like this big complex career center of a building, and it sat probably close to 150, 200 yards off the road. And there was a speed sign. Like, we had to slow down to 20. I'm like, if these kids,
The high school kids run across
these
the
are
street.
juniors and seniors out in the middle of this road, like out in the middle of this, like nowhere, that are like supposed to be in here learning careers,
Yeah.
and they don't know how to look both ways before they cross a road. Like, what are we doing here, folks? Like, I don't get
Yeah.
it. Like, I don't.
I think that's just the history and government regulations that never change, you know, right?
So, just what do you do differently than like what a structure would be for school? Like, how do you guys structure it, and how did you even know where to start or like what to do?
Well, I guess first I did a lot of research because I had in my mind that it had to look just like school.
Right.
You know, the rules for Ohio are you have to teach them so many hours. I don't remember how many it is, a couple hundred hours. And you have to teach them, there's a list of subjects you have to teach them. So I started following and researching different people who had already homeschooled, and there's hundreds more options even now than there were, 2 years ago that I found, and I'm going to incorporate this next year. But I decided, I need to make my kids self-sufficient, so they get up in the morning, and a lot of times they can make their own breakfast. I mean, Macy's 9 now. She can cook an egg. She can toast her own toast. Dominic can too. They can make lunch for themselves if they have to. And so getting them on a schedule, it took most of the school year this year, but they can get up, get dressed, they get their own breakfast. They know at 9:00 is typically when we start, only because the things that happen in the morning, they just need time to do it, So 9:00 is a fine starting time. They can start earlier if they want to. Sometimes I tell them, if you get all your stuff done, go the rest of the day, If I can tell that they're not doing well, we don't do that subject. We're doing it 15 minutes. When you're done with that 15 minutes, we're stopping no matter what we're doing, because I can tell, they're over it, whatever it is. Especially Dominic with math. That's
Feel him.
But
He's good at math.
he's good at it. He just doesn't like it. And so I don't want him to hate the subject.
Yeah.
It's not about the subjects. It's about the learning. I don't want him to hate learning.
Yeah.
So you learn things along the way. And so we usually, the book work, I would call it, that we have to do per state rules, we try to get that done by lunchtime. And then the other stuff, my mom was doing science with them 2 days a week. So they did get to see another adult who was not their mother telling them what to do all the time. It's a little hard for kids, but like I said, it's taken us this whole year to fall into a routine now. But we typically are done with school by 1:30. Some days it's earlier, some days it takes longer. We go do things, we go to the library, we interact with people in the community. Craig will take Dominic with him. My dad will take Dominic with him sometimes.
My grandpa.
Yep, Dominic has 3 jobs, he'll tell you. Mowing and doing all sorts of stuff. So there's my homeschool day looks, I'm sure, a lot different than the people right down the road from me, because you can structure however you want to. There's no rules. And you don't have to be perfect at it. And you don't have to start a curriculum and that's what you have to do the rest of the year. We dumped a couple things halfway through the year because I'm like, this is not working. They don't like it. They're not learning. They're not retaining information. And that's not what I want. I want them to enjoy it.
So when you say curriculum, you had a specific thing from a specific company that you bought or ordered or whatever, and just going through that just wasn't working. So you just said, I'm not doing this. Okay.
So a lot of curriculums, you can do placement tests for kids. So they'll take a placement test and tells you where to start, what level. A lot of times they don't even go by grade level. It's just level 1, level 2. And that can correlate from, 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, depending on what your kid is. And that's what I love about homeschooling, because I guess a lot of schools right now, they push reading so early. And I've talked to teachers about it, and their kids have come home crying because they're not ready to learn how to read in kindergarten. Some kids are not. Mm. And so I don't really have my kids on a timeline like that anymore. It's just, we're learning this. And if you don't learn it right away, that's okay. We'll revisit it. Or we'll do more later, or we'll do more now. If you like it, you're just not getting it. So it's so adjustable to your own child and what they love to do. I was just looking at curriculum with Dominic last week, and there's a whole unit lesson I would call it, on cars, how to change oil, how to do all the basic maintenance of cars, because he's just really into cars. Is that something you're interested in? Let's do it. You can do whatever you want as long as you cover those basic things that the state requires you to.
I think it's important because it's we want, you need to be able to read and write. Those are very important things to get through life. Basic math, that's kind of helpful too. Being able to understand how much money you have and being able to, balance all those things. But that was one of the biggest things that we started talking about. It was well, when she was doing remote learning during the pandemic, she would get done with work by 11 o'clock. And I was like, well, what do you, and she wouldn't start till 9. And it was well, what are you doing all day? Are we just sending you there to be just to be a babysitter? Is that what we're doing? Besides the interaction with other kids, which is important, what's the point of you being there?
But even so, I know the socialization part is one of people's main hangups for homeschooling, well, they're not getting socialized. And I can tell you, one of the reasons I decided to homeschool was I was in the school doing the Scholastic Reading Week where they have all the books set up, and the kids can come in their classrooms. And it was beside the lunchroom. Every single day that week that I was there, they turned the lights out on the kids because they were being too loud talking. The only time that the kids can talk to each other. And they had to be silent the rest of the lunch period.
Oh, jeez.
And their lunch periods aren't that long. So, I mean, they're sitting in, with the lights off for 5 or 10 minutes. But still, it's like, they're not even that loud. They're at the complete end of the building. There's no classrooms around them. And they still have to just sit down and be quiet. Or you get the lights turned off.
With their slop.
And after that, I was like, no, this is not how we treat other humans.
That's
They
what
do in
Kai
prison.
said. I said, Kai, are you going to miss your friend? Because I
They
tried
don't
to
do
throw
that in prison.
every
They leave the lights on.
Yeah,
possible
always.
negative option. Because I wanted her to make a choice based on not what summer break is. Like being homeschooled is not going to be summer break. And I was like, well, what about your friends? Like you have 2 really good friends that you're really close with this year. And she's like, well, I get to see them maybe at recess if we share a recess together, and I barely have time to eat. And she's a super slow eater. She's like, but I'm not allowed to talk. She's like, she brought a blue tally home, which is you're in trouble for talking in the lunch line as they were walking from lunch to recess. And it was just the teacher I don't know, it didn't make any sense, but which is fine. Kids do things they're not supposed to do. That's fine. But she has a very short time. She's like, I don't get to really talk to my friends. I have them on Messenger. When you guys let me on my tablet, I can talk to them then. That's true.
And going back to what you mentioned earlier too, if she doesn't like a subject, because some subjects she enjoys more than others. And some subjects like math, she's good at math. She doesn't really necessarily love it. I was a math geek. That's what I like doing. But she's good at it, but doesn't necessarily love it. And she loves science. And some other things are, whatever. She loves reading, always, whatever. But what if, we get to the point where it's you can find, especially at a young age, where this kid excels at something. So in math class, she was sitting there for weeks. It would be state testing was coming up. So they did review so that the school could get, we want these kids to know what they're doing, but essentially you could see that it was the school wants to perform well. So now the 3 weeks prior to state testing, they're reviewing everything so the kids do well on the tests. But then you have kids sitting there doing nothing for weeks on end because she's like, we're doing the same stuff I learned 3 months ago.
That's,
What?
not that I'm involved, I see what Jess does a lot with the kids here and there, but I'm not there for most of it. But I do see she picks up pretty quickly, oh, Macy just whipped through this 3 pages of math. So rather than sit there for hours and listen to the teacher go over and over and over to teach everybody, she excels through that, and let's move on.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more efficient, and they're not in school. I mean, their school day is much shorter than a normal school day. And then they go on way more field trips, and they're learning things and getting out in the environment and seeing the world. And one of the things that really bothered me was, we like to travel some, and it got to the point where early on I'm like, well, what do you mean we can't go? I want to take my kids and go somewhere. And it was like, well, gosh, with the school, they can't miss many days. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm going to take them to places when we go on a trip, and they're going to see more things and do more things and be in the world.
Instead of being in a book, you're actually going to
Yeah.
see it firsthand.
Yeah. We get to go see some stuff, and so that bothered me. I was like, wait a second. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't sit right with me. If I want to take my kids somewhere, you should be all for that.
Yeah.
I'm not taking them to Vegas. We're not going to casino.
Right.
We're going to go do some stuff, We're going to go do some fun things, and they're going to see the world and learn. And
Unless one of your kids is like Rain Man.
yeah, right.
Well, then that case-
Well,
Then we're going to Vegas.
I might take Dominic.
He's-
It hasn't.
count
That's
them
crossed
cards.
my mind.
Counting cards.
The dude, we went to we went. Dominic and I went to Norwalk, the drag strip yesterday, and dude, it was so wild because they had these cars coming up, and they were all plastic bodied, like
Mm.
wannabe old cars, but they weren't the real bodies, steel frame bodies. And he was telling me what they were.
Really?
And I'm like,
Okay.
dude, I'm like, what's that? He knew what it was, what year and what make. I'm like,
He can read whatever he wants to read. Remember when you were in school and you had to read for AR points, but you could only select from this?
Certain- yeah.
When Dominic was in school, he wanted to read things like Captain Underpants, stuff that was his grade level appropriate, you know. But he was testing at a higher grade level. So he was in 4th grade testing at a 6th grade reading level. So he was supposed to read 6th grade reading material. I'm like, no. 6th grade reading material is not made for a 4th grader to read.
Yeah.
So him talking about cars, he reads about cars constantly. That's what he loves to read. He also reads Calvin and Hobbes, you know, cartoon books. But that's because he loves to read, because he gets to choose what he wants to read.
Right.
I don't care what he reads in his free time, you know, for his AR points, which we don't do AR points, but he still has to read.
Right.
It's like he can choose now what he likes and what he is learning.
Hold on. What are AR points?
Accelerated reader. So
Okay.
it's like you're set in a certain reading level,
Okay.
and then you have to read so many points per quarter.
Okay.
I guess. Yeah.
I hear AR and I think something different. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, are they
Yeah.
putting him through tactical proficiencies? I was like, I like where this is going.
Well, that just
Lights
led-
go off in the
Well-
cafeteria and the nods come down.
That's only at Tim Kennedy School.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Well, there was a period of time where his teacher, which is a friend of mine, was making him read a higher level, and he didn't like that. And I was like, well, why don't you just let him read what he wants to read? He's excited about reading. Let him read what he wants to do. And because he's very smart. Like the dude, he sees things, he reads things, and he doesn't forget. And I don't know yet how to capitalize on that for him. But I can't look at a card and remember the year, but he can. So I'm like, let's pay attention to that. And maybe we wouldn't know that had we not be educating him ourselves. So we can kind of see where your kid's strengths are. And you just kind of let it go, right? You let him
Right.
develop and grow into whatever that may lead to. Because everybody has different strengths and weaknesses.
Mm.
And, you know, you push them through the general school system, and I don't think that gets the attention it needs.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Well, it's like that picture that you see of, and I think it's a quote, but where you have all those animals and they
who can climb a
they can
tree?
climb a tree and there's like fish
A
and
shark.
stuff. Yeah. It's like, well,
Elephant.
Not every kid's gonna be
Yeah.
good at everything.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, why are we pushing them to excel at every single thing? They don't have to.
And they're not capable of it.
No.
You know, like we talk about, like, I love math. She hates it. So like, if you find what the kid loves, and maybe you might end up discovering, you know, at the very extreme end of the spectrum, you may end up like discovering a prodigy of something because they were allowed to invest their time in it if they wanted. Like, yeah, okay, we still need to talk about history. We still need to make sure we can read and write. But if you really, really love this one thing, well, why would I stop you as soon as you are proficient at it and then wait until next year to teach you something new? No, just love it. Just take it. Like, to take it and run. We'll keep all these other things going. But, you know, the thought of like an 8th grader that is beyond a high school level proficiency at something, like, that's not that far out of the spectrum, just because they're able to condense those things and are able to learn more as soon as they get there. They don't have to wait weeks to get to the new, level of math. Like, they can just keep on going. It's like, oh, like, what could people find out about themselves, years down the road, when they can, if they're allowed to just invest their time in the things they really enjoy and love doing.
The further I get along in life, the more I realize that your confidence and your self-esteem is really what's going to make you successful. And if somebody sat me down and said, "Hey, you got to take some college courses on poetry," I would fail drastically.
Yeah.
Or music. I love music. I love it. I've got a guitar tattooed on my arm. But
I play music and I don't even know
but I
anything
can't
about it.
but I can't play music. I can't sing. I can't play music. That's not my strength. And I think that's where the school system kind of falls apart a little bit, is like if a kid's not good at a certain subject, they focus on it. It's like, well, okay, you have the basics, that's fine. Let's move on. Let's
Right.
focus on what you're good at. If the school system built every kid up to like, look, you're really good at this. Let's focus on this. You're good. You're good. You're good. Doing great. You're better than everybody else. Imagine what our society would look
Right.
like.
Let's give you more complicated things to
Because-
do in that field.
Because I think, self-esteem and confidence is what will make someone open their own business. If you have no self-esteem or no confidence in yourself, you're not going to do much.
Yeah.
You're going to struggle because you're going to believe that you're not good at things. And so I think it's like, let's learn the basics. And then from there, let's branch off and figure out what you're really good at and focus on that and build kids up, build them up to where when they graduate high school, they think they can conquer the world. And I don't really think that's happening. And so that's what I focus on with our kids. Like my kids are drastically different. My gosh. And so I kind of encourage them to do whatever they're good at. And I think that's what needs to happen in the world is you have these young minds, these young kids. You have to give them confidence and self-esteem before they get into the real world. Because if they don't have it, the world ain't going to give it to them. It's going to take you a while to build it up, like it did me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest part of homeschooling is we can focus on what our kids are good at, develop that into whatever it turns out to be. And so if you're not good at writing poetry, if you're not good at drawing pictures, that's fine. No big deal. But we're going to focus on what you're good at.
Right.
I feel like that's a quote. Like, it's like, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. For what the world needs is more people who've come alive.
Yeah. Ooh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wish I would have had the mindset that I have had the last, I've learned more in this last 6 years than I've ever learned in my entire life. Because I was like, I can just focus on whatever I want, and have fun with it. And realizing that, if somebody would have directed me as a child, I don't know if I would have figured out what I would want to do. But it was always like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I'm not going to college. So why am I doing? And then they almost doubled down, where it was like, well, no, you have to take this class. Well, why? Well, because, for college, I'm not going. Well, you have to take this class. Why? Because you have to. I'm like,
I had to take French. I had to take French in high school.
If you hadn't taken French, you wouldn't have.
Yeah, that's true.
oh,
We had
see?
French class together.
Oh, there's a
But I was
reason
like,
for
dude, this is
everything.
the worst
Oh la
class.
la.
This is the worst class I've ever taken.
Enchanté.
I speak English. I'm not moving to France. I'm going to stay right here. Trust me. I'm going to be just fine. Like, what am I doing?
Well, and
Craig and I, our big picture thing is that the thing that's most important to us about our kids is their salvation. It's not about school, and every day we can be with them and teach them our values, our morals, which are based on the Bible. And that is something the schools are pushing away, as hard as possible. So really the main reason we decided to switch is because we want them to have those biblically based values coming straight from us every single day, from when they wake up to when they go to bed. So that's one of the main reasons that we decided to homeschool in the first place. But COVID gave us that out.
That pushed us over the
The
edge.
push, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it opened our eyes, is realizing it's that whole what are we doing? Why should we be doing this?
I think
Why are we doing
A lot of
this?
people's eyes. I mean, I don't like talking about it because I don't like offending people, because that's what everybody's offended by everything, And I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and what they love to do is teach, and that's great. It's not right for our family, but we've just taken this other role, and it's like opened my eyes. Like there's a whole group of people out there that think the exact same way that we do, but we're just now starting to talk about it.
Right. Well, I like, because I know a lot of times there is absolutely a stigma with like homeschooling, because you know what, myself included, like I grew up and I knew some homeschooling people, and I knew the stereotypical like, oh, that kid's homeschooled, and it was like, they're weird, they're awkward, and it was all these different types of things. But I also knew homeschooling kids that like weren't weird and awkward, but their families had different sets of values, and always. So it's like when you realize that like, you know, I don't know necessarily how that homeschooling like got that stigma. Maybe just because it's different and people like view it as different. But when you realize like the complexity and the variety that you can offer your kids, and the ability to teach them like, hey, this is what life is really like. Like you don't have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom. For the most part, like if you are on an assembly line working in a factory, I've worked in factories, no problem with that. And if you enjoy, running that CNC machine, like some people really like do it. Like that's awesome. Like you might want to wait until that machine's done doing what it needs to do. Then you can go to the bathroom so it doesn't mess up. But like this life is so more malleable than what we're, a lot of people are led to believe.
The transition to homeschool for me with the kids was real simple, because there were two kids that started school. They were homeschooled, and then they're two guys. I don't talk to them much anymore, but they started school with us. They were homeschooled, and then they jumped into school, middle school, high school. I forget what the year was. They were the smartest kids in our class by far. Like they were the smartest ones, best grades. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Like, what happened? We were going through school, and these two kids jump in from homeschool, and they're smarter than everyone else. Their grades are better, every single one of them. And they were awkward and weird, only in that they didn't conform to what we thought was cool in school.
Yeah,
that was it. There was nothing else. They were easy to talk to. They were very nice. Never bullied anybody. They were basically examples of what I would want my kids to be.
They were weird just because they had to be, because they were homeschooled.
They were different.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I was like, well, I have no issue with my kids being homeschooled, because those guys are great. They're great human beings. And just because they didn't have the same haircut or the same clothes, I saw through that. I didn't care. Like, you're just nice people. You're a good teammate. They play baseball with me. I've never, ever been offended by them or upset by them. Like, so I was like, oh, I have no problem. If that's what my kids turn into, absolutely. 100%. I'm all for it.
Yeah. I think it just hit me as you're talking about that. I think I got a small awakening to that when I was in high school. 'Cause like you realize like people, like there's some people that get stuck in whether it be high school or college, and they just never grow out of that. In my senior year, I worked full time, and I just chose not to play football. And all of my friends were, football, a lot of football guys, and most of them were still friends with me. Like they were really great, but a couple of them had like football dads and like coaches. In the second that I was like, yeah, I'm not playing, it was like I didn't exist. And it was like, and some of them were obviously they're coaches and they're teachers, and it was like, well, this is really weird. Like you're a grown, like you are 40, mid 40s, 50 years old, and your perception, like the way you treat me revolves around if I play football for you or not in high school. And it was like, you hear those people like, oh, these like, and they were like, this will be the greatest memory of your life, this, that, whatever. I'm like, like maybe that's not necessarily, I don't think I want to be stuck in high school for the rest of my life thinking about high school football. Like it was great. I had stories and it was an awesome time. And like, I'm not besmirching that, whatever, but like, if that's like your, the climax of your life is high school football, and you're treating, a kid that's friends with your son differently because he decided to work full time and take care of himself and not play football. Like, I struggled with that for a long time. It was like, I didn't know what to do with that
Yeah.
for a long time. And it was like, oh, like this is just, that's what you've always lived with. And that's what your mind has just always been,
Mm.
this is the way it is. And it's like, I don't think that's life. Like there's gotta be more than that, right? Like
Yeah.
I hope. Like,
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because there's two kids in Ashland that played football and now they open their own business as juniors in high school. And I'm all about it. I'm supporting them and they're not playing football. And I'm torn because it's like, well, I get paid to coach these kids to play football and lift and stuff. But on the other hand, I'm like, dude, 100%, man, get it going. Like, absolutely. Because, so, and I've told kids since day one, since I've ever owned a gym, I said, you need to do what you want to do. Because I've encountered kids that were insanely good at CrossFit. Like, I can't even describe what progress they could have made. And their track coach said, no, you can't. You have to pick track or CrossFit. And I'm like, I don't care what you do. Do both. Play softball too. I don't care what you do. It's your life. But I was like, what do you mean they can't do multiple things? Like, it's their life. Why would you hold them back? And so I encourage kids, whatever they want to do, as long as it's a positive thing, go for it. Absolutely. The younger you are, the bigger risk you should take. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
As you get older, things start to lock in place. You got a family, kids, your ability to take risks gets minimized. So at a young age, high school, dude, start that business, man. Get it rocking and rolling. Because it might not succeed. You might fail. You might whatever, but you're going to learn and you're going to be better for it. Yeah, so that's interesting. I agree with you 100%. Like you probably learned way more than you thought you learned just working instead of playing football. I mean, either one would have been a good option.
No,
Like,
yeah,
you
and
could have
like
gone wrong.
if you play football, like because go to college and play football, there's a lot to learn there, and if you love it, like great,
But nobody should ever treat you different because you decided to work. Like, I agree with you 100%. That's a really crappy attitude to take. And it sounds like someone's trying to live their life through you is what was happening.
yeah, it's just sad.
Well, and it wasn't like you gave up football for, sand volleyball or something. Like you were working.
Oh, now.
Whoa,
You grew up on sand volleyball.
I was just trying to think
Top
of
Gun 2
something
just came out.
completely
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Better watch your mouth.
Might as well have said soccer.
I didn't say soccer just for
Burst into
Tony.
flames over here.
But like you were working.
Yeah,
You were going to school.
That
and
was
then
what
you were
really-
working full time, second shift to pay your bills because you lived on your own. So like,
that's what really like made me realize like, oh, like they weren't just like, maybe they were just pissed that I
They
wasn't
just
playing
wanted
football.
you on the line.
Yeah, maybe, but it was like I realized I'm like, well, like this is like some of these people like this is like my friend, like a good friend that I've had for years and years, like his dad, and it was like, we're like, really?
Mhm.
Like I couldn't reconcile that in my brain. It took me a long time to realize like, oh, like it took me a long time I honestly just got to the point where I was like, I felt bad for him.
Oh.
I was like, man, but I did have I did have one guy that always supported me as a coach, and he was like one of the like greatest like in my life. It was at the same time was like a mentor to me, and it was like realizing and seeing him like do what he did for me was just like I don't know if you know Sam Sayre, if you know the name at all. So he opened up and ran Sam's Pizza.
Okay.
He had a couple of places around,
Yeah.
but he was a strength and conditioning coach when I was in high school, and he would was it my sophomore year? My junior year, I would get off at work at like 8:00 at night, and he would open up the gym for me, and he would
But
just come in.
What's the key? He owned a business.
Yeah,
He
and
got it.
And when I
right?
stopped playing football, he was still really nice to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets the big picture.
Yeah, so it was like okay, like there's something different like going on here.
Sports, football, it's great. But if you've got if you're drawn to something else and you feel the need to work, I will never, ever, I will just do nothing but support you for that, right? Like that's what should be happening. Someone's trying to better their life, you should support that.
No, I can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting that you said that, like that factory work, just because that's like the paradigm of education based on the Industrial Revolution,
Right.
and that like kids are this like cog in the wheel where they have to this, and kind of going back to what Craig was saying, what I've always said too about that, and I know I harp on this big time, but in that factory is that convergency. Like everyone must do their role. Everyone must raise their hand to go to the bathroom. And I'm big on divergency. And so you kind of wonder that like if there was more fostering of divergency, not only like these different people, but how many more people would possibly start their own businesses. I don't know, just a thought. I feel like we'd probably have colonized Mars already if there's more divergency. But
But when you look at the most successful, just using simple terms, the most successful people, quote unquote, in the world right now, as far as business goes and like capitalism, what you got, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos.
yeah.
And what, less than 10 years ago, people were saying Bezos was stupid for doing it. We're going to sell books online.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You know what I mean? And now he's one of the richest on paper.
And how many
men in the
how many
world.
times do people tell Elon like, dude, you can't do that. That's
Yeah.
not going to work. And
It's like, what?
he's like, I'm going to blow up 100 rockets, but one of them's going to get there. So.
Yeah, and now he's landing rockets in the middle of the ocean on a platform. Like,
Yeah.
like so, it's like you realize, like, that doesn't speak to the kind of people or anything they are, but like, guess what? Like, divergent thinking and those out of the box ideas, yeah, they're not all going to land. Was it they say, even though technically Edison may not have created the light bulb, it was like 200 or 1,000 or whatever it was before he got it right. Like, and if you're not allowed to take those chances and keep on trying,
Yeah, I just wonder how our society would look if people are encouraged to take more chances. Because if you're not willing to take a risk, you're not going to make it far.
Right.
Like the bigger the risk you take, the bigger the reward payoff in the end. And I've always thought too, I'm like, because I've worked at a lot of different jobs, tons of different jobs, and I've encountered so many different coworkers. And you pretty quickly realize, like, oh, this person could own their own business of some sort. And it just killed me to see them. I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, you should be doing something on your own. And I think that's where people are afraid to take that jump.
Is it fear, or is it a combination of fear and like they're just content with where they are? Like, what's your assessment of that you found in most people, where that if they took that calculated risk and the leap, that they would succeed, but they just don't?
I think that people get a paycheck and they're like, well, this is good for now, and I don't know what would happen if I jumped off. And so they stay with it. They just want that paycheck. They're afraid to take that jump.
I feel like, so for me, the unknown would be far worse than the known. And I'm same with you, man. I know that, but most people are like, well, I'm comfortable enough with this known that it far outweighs the unknown. Like, that would keep me up at night. It would gnaw at me if I was like, what if?
Yeah. ...
What if I would have pursued that?
Well, that's what drove me to open a gym for the first time. Is I kept telling people I'm gonna open a gym someday, and I was like 29 years old or something like that. I don't remember. And I'm like, dude, what am I gonna do? Keep telling people this till I die? And so I started literally thinking, I'm like, if I live to be 70, 80 years old or whatever it may be, I am not going to sit there and be like, well, yeah, I wish I would have done this. I was like, I would happily be able to tell people I tried and failed before I ever said, oh, yeah, I never gave it a shot. And that's a message I think people need to hear. It's like, just try it. If someone makes fun of you because it failed, whatever. That's on them, dude. Like,
Right.
At least you tried, because they probably didn't.
Where did you learn that it was okay to fail? Or how did you learn that?
I wasn't willing to, I don't know. I just wasn't willing to not try, I don't know. I never really had anyone push me to do anything. But I was just like, I'm not going to keep living. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do something I want to do. I was good at every job I did. I mean, I did a great job. I never had write-ups or nothing like that. But I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like it. I don't like being told when to come to work, what to wear, like how to do stuff. And I think anyone that doesn't like that type of thing, that doesn't like to be told what to do and how to do it, go do something on your own. Because there's a million different things. There's a ton of ways to make money. Like, my gosh, I've always admired the lawn mowing business. Because I'm like, dude, that's such a cool, like, cookie cutter business. And I like mowing grass. And I've always admired that. It's like, just start there. I don't care what you do. Just start something. Go offer a service and go do it for a while. Because the thing is, when I first opened my gyms, I just opened a CrossFit gym. And now, I still own the CrossFit 419 gym. But, like, my whole direction now is, like, the 24-hour gym. So business changes over time. Like, you start to realize, like, wait, this is what I like. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do. But, my whole thing is just, I want to help anyone that wants to change their body. Like, I don't care what your knowledge is. I have something for you.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not everyone's passion, but if you like something, if you enjoy doing something, I think it's a real problem if you really have a passion for something and you go pursue something else as your career. Don't do that. Go do what you want to do, what you're passionate about, what you spend your time thinking about and doing. Go do that. Our community, our society would be so much better if everybody did that. But it's a risk. Like, I get it. So I don't bash anyone for not doing it, but I would encourage you to do that, to follow your passion 100%. Because if you're passionate about it, you won't fail. Like my boys up at White Feather, dude, I don't care. The three of us could have worked their business for 10 years. We would have all quit, but they didn't.
And they didn't even go to high school.
No, they didn't even get to high. They didn't even get to high school.
Yeah, they never got there.
And dude, they're some of the most successful people I know, and because they didn't quit. It didn't matter. Like they did what had to be done, and they did not give up. And now it's paid off huge for them. So that's the key. If you're passionate about it, you might fail a few times, but if you don't quit, you're not done. Like, you'll figure it out. And they're the best example of that I could think, because they spent 2 decades struggling, and now it's just like, boom, blew up finally, and I think that's going to be true with anyone that wants to work hard. If you work hard, if you have common sense and the ability to talk to people, you're going to be fine, but it's going to take some work. You can't just think it's going to be handed to you. So yeah, work hard and do what you want to do.
How much internally, a little like self brag, do you feel good about being able to like figure this out while your kids are young, and being able to like impart like that kind of wisdom upon them? It's like, look, like the world's not what everybody else will say. It's like,
so
go find your own.
So with Dominic, I kind of let him start his own little business in my CrossFit gym in Ashland. So he sells water bottles for $1 a bottle. He has to stock the fridge. He gets money in a little jar. But I don't even know how he gets water now, because I haven't taken it for a while. But I don't know where it comes from. I don't even know where it comes from. But anyway, so I said, look,
get a bicycle soon.
You can buy these water bottles for 20 cents a bottle or whatever they cost, right. And then you put them in the gym and you come and collect your dollars. He's got a separate jar that they put their money in. And I dropped him off at Aldi's the one day. I said, go in and buy your water. Here's your money. Come out with your water. And he did. He's 11, 10. He was probably 10 at the time. I didn't care. Like, go do your job, dude. Like, you got to learn. Talk to people, And so he did. He went in there and came out with his water bottles and he put them in the fridge. And now he, you know, we went there and collected his money, and he's like, "Oh, I got made all this money." I was like, "Listen, you ain't make no money on water if you don't have people to sell it to. So just realize that first of all, you ain't selling it at the street.
Need 10% to the big guy.
Yeah, you know." So I told him,
Kick it
I
on
said,
up.
right. So I told him, I made sure he understood.
Right.
Like, look, the only reason this works is because we have people here.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that. But, you know, keep doing what you're doing and just learn from it.
Some of the other lessons he's learned through this water bottle experience, he started shopping around and realized he could get water for 10 cents a bottle. You know, but that stuff he had to figure out on his own.
That's awesome.
And then he got his money, decided he wanted to spend some of it. Okay, let's go to the store. Well, he collects coins too. So this little pack of things he can put his coins in was a couple dollars. So he goes up to the register, figured out what tax was pretty quickly.
Tax.
So like those are the things that we can go do every day. And he's figured out like how to shop, you know, efficiently and make more money, what taxes and how much you have to pay and how, you know, well, you have this much, but you have to save a little bit back because you have to pay your tax with it. So those are things that he's also learned through the water bottle experience.
That's awesome. Well, that's like we've been talking, Cass and I, about like this like doing the homeschooling thing. It's like all these things that you do through a normal day as an adult, you know, mostly through life. It's like we can teach all of the lessons that they teach in school through the normal day. Like, all right, maybe algebra and some, you know, calculus. All right, now, you know, I like to build things, but I'm not building anything that requires calculus by any means. But like, you know, the tax and addition and all these different like things. You got to pay your taxes at the end of the year. Like all, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Like, so you can teach these lessons as you go through a day-to-day basis, like
Real life
things. And then it's like,
It's a story problem.
right.
Paper.
Right. So it's like you can be the person in the story. You know, you can be Jane with her 5 cows and 3 chickens.
Story
and,
problem, that test that Kyrie brought home. They were talking about if Jimmy packed a sandwich, what would he put it in to keep the sandwich cold enough for school?
I lost my mind.
And it was talking about like, would he wrap it in aluminum foil or would he wrap it in plastic? You know, and I'm like, well, there was probably like a story that went with it. And Fred's like, that's wrong. That is not even right. And Kyrie was like, well, I got it wrong. And Fred's like, I would have done exactly what you did. Because he was like thinking very practical. And I'm like, there was probably like a story that went with it. And he's like, the story doesn't make sense though. Like it doesn't flow. It's not accurate. Like it's scientifically not accurate. And I'm like, well, they probably just wanted her to be able to read the story and pick something out of it. He's like, then make the story accurate.
Yeah,
like,
so
this
that's
is not
bullshit.
even
That's what
make
that is. Like, I don't
sense.
want to answer. Like, I've done that too many times where I have accreditations in my professional career where it's like that you can tell the tests are just made to like make money. We want you to give us the answer that we want you to give us. All of it, like it's like 3 out of the 4 questions could be or answers could be right, but you need to make sure that you give us the answer that we want. It's like stop it. Like that's not how life works. That's like it just drives me crazy. But then I did find out that was a bonus question, probably because they knew the question was crap.
Well, the story problems are interesting to me because, and I'm a very stubborn person. Like I can hear things. Jess tells me all the time. Jess will come up with an idea for the business and I'll ignore it. And then 6 months later, I bring it up as my own. And then it's like the greatest thing ever, right? So she knows that. Like, we're okay with that.
We've
whatever.
talked about this before.
So,
That's the role I play.
That's a
Yeah.
husband thing.
so the funny thing is with story problems, I would always figure out the right answer in school, but I would never be able to show my work because I was more like a guess and check.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I never did it by the way they taught me. It didn't make sense. I didn't like that. I was like, I would guess and check and figure out the answer and I would get it right, but I would always lose points, which is insane to me. If you get the right answer, good.
Yeah.
You got the answer. And it's funny to me because as a business owner, you own a business, there is no equation. None. You don't have an equation.
You don't have to explain
figure
to
it out.
somebody why
You
you got
have-
the right answer.
You got to figure it out on your own, man. Like if there was an equation for it, everybody would do it.
Right.
And so it's funny to me. I look back, I always laugh because it's like, dude, I still have to figure stuff out like that. But you don't have an equation for me. I just have to figure it out on my own. And it's funny, the kids that are doing that are like, well, I don't get how you're doing it with your little system, but I have a way to figure it out on my own. Those are the ones I need to be like, all right, cool. Here's some different questions for you.
Yeah.
Figure this one out. That's what needs to happen rather than tell you, oh, well, I guess you're not smart enough. No.
Then they need to go, here's a rocket, build it.
Yeah. Yeah. Give them something harder. Don't tell them, don't tear down their confidence and self-esteem by telling them they're not as good. Tell them, dude, that's really cool that you figured that out. You didn't even need our system. And you still figured out the answer.
Yeah, I would say that's the best, to be honest with you.
That was kind of my thought. Is I was like, I didn't need your system. I still figured it out.
Yeah.
Now what? But no, I lost points. How does that help anybody?
Makes zero sense. That was always my problem. It was like, well, if I'm giving you the right answer, then what?
I got the answer.
Right. Like,
I didn't cheat. I just figured it out on my own.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the business owner, that's the big disconnect. You own a business, no one's telling you how to do nothing. You got to figure it out on your own. And I think that's where they need to start identifying, like, okay, this person thinks outside the box. Let's capitalize on that and move them forward rather than tell them, no, follow our program.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. You got to do that with some things. But other things, it's like this person's not thinking on the same wavelength. Let's help them out beyond. Because I don't feel like, because there was periods of time through school where I felt like, well, I guess I'm not good enough. When in reality, it was like, I'm just thinking differently than everybody else or differently than the program said. And I think there needs to be some leniency there with people.
Maybe I don't even say leniency. I would say let's tap into some of those people that think differently, because those are the people that end up propelling, society as a whole forward. Yeah. That, hey, this person thinks a little bit. Are they a little bit different? Yeah, but sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That they can think, around these situations and problems we have and figure it out on their own without whatever equation it is.
You mean the non-elected leaders?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sorry. Are we
the divergent?
Yeah, I joke about the flat Earth and all the thing. Like when that first started, no, that's not right because that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit our
I'm
box.
sending you up, bro.
I'm down. I'm here for
I'm writing that $50,000 check, and you were going to space.
I'm here for it. I want to see the curvature of the Earth. It'd be sweet. But that's like we always, the experts, given enough time, have always been wrong. Every single system, essentially, that we've had, given enough time, has been wrong and changed and made better. So by doing the same thing that we've always done, like what does that get us? No. The same crap, and we never, advance. These people never get smarter because it's like, no, you have to do it this way.
You can't train everybody to be the same, because then you're not getting any different outcome. Yeah, so anyone that's been really good at any trade that I've ever met started at a pretty young age. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think society today doesn't like that idea. They just want you to be like, well, graduate high school and then you can do whatever you want. When in reality, there's kids that start at 10 years old that are doing things, and they're a professional by the time they're 17, 18 years old before they even graduate. And they are able to make a good income, good living on whatever trade they learned. And I think I've always thought in my mind, I'm like, man, past 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I don't feel like I learned a whole lot in high school, like that really applied to my life. It was all this real...
Yeah, at least not educational value.
Right.
I learned a lot.
It was like this real abstract education stuff. I'm like, I haven't applied any of that. Like, none of that makes any difference. I just wonder what our society would look like if at 6th, 7th, 8th grade, people started learning a trade. And I think, not to go off topic, but you see more and more nowadays with high school kids intermingling with the teachers in bad ways. I'm like, well, because they ain't doing nothing. They're just jacking around in school and texting and messaging, and it's all these inappropriate relationships and stuff because nothing's happening.
Yep.
They're just there, just kind of wasting their day.
To fulfill the time.
Yeah. And I've always thought, like, that's not right. Like, you turn 13, 14, 15 years old, like, you can start being productive in society in some way.
Mhm.
And I would have loved that because when I was in high school, I went to Criminal Justice Career Center, and as soon as I had the opportunity to do work release, dude, I was working immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. I was getting out of there as soon as I
Yeah.
could. I'll go work. I don't care what I had to do. Just get me out of here. I'm going to make some money. And so I think it'd be good to see more of that. Just getting people productive in society, and just, I think people, I wish the education system would be based around how can you benefit your community the best you can. Because that's never brought up. That's never a topic. It's always, well, you'll have a boss someday, you got to listen to them. I'm like, well, that kind of sucks. Like, that's not real
No,
motivating.
that really sucks.
Nobody's motivated by that, right? Like, and again, I have no issue. Everybody, has a place in society. Not everyone's a business owner, so you'll have employees. I have some fantastic employees. I wouldn't trade them for anything. But on the other hand, like, what are we doing to push people into benefiting their society? What is your best trait, your best characteristics that can help our community be better? And I don't think that's ever brought up.
Yeah.
Focus on what you're good at and go do that, rather than, well, what's the best vacation time? What's the best hourly pay?
Right.
When can you retire? I remember at jobs I had in the past, we'd sit at lunch, and every few months it'd come up, how many years you have to retirement? I was like, dude, I so badly want to just leave here right now and drive off a cliff. Like, I don't want to be here at all. This is horrible. Because if the only thing you're focused on is how many years you retire, you might as well be in jail.
Yeah.
Like, when can you get out of jail?
I got 20
When's
years
your
so I
release?
can get out. Yeah.
What a horrible
Yeah.
situation. And I would encourage anyone that's the conversation they're having regularly. Go do what you want to do.
Start having new
Because
conversations.
because people, it's so funny to me. I have people, they'll ask, different people will be like, well, you want me to help you with your investments? You want me to help you with your retirement fund and stuff? I'm like, no, because I have these businesses. That's my retirement. I don't ever intend to quit until I die. Why would I have to quit? What? I don't want to retire. I love it. I don't want to get rid of it. This is what I do.
Right.
And I think that's the attitude people need to have, is like, I'm not focused on retirement. That's never crossed my mind. This is what I love doing. And I think that needs to be the approach with the education system. It's like, what's the point of getting a job if all you're doing is, I just got to work 30 more years till I can quit? That's horrible.
That's a miserable life.
That's not fun at all.
I think there's another big missing link, which is parenthood.
Mm.
So you're never given, like, in school today, when were you ever taught, like, you can also just be a mom?
Right.
And what are we missing? We have so many parents, both of them work all day long, and are expected to know how to come home, which is not a problem if parents want to work, but then they're expected to come home and know how to do all these things with their kids when they're not taught how to manage a life like that. We're taught, well, you go to college. Like, I was, in school, it's like, well, here's your career choices, what you would be good at, something artsy, whatever. I did my college, and then I'm like, well, I have to use my degree now, or else what a waste of money.
Mm.
It wasn't like, well, you can actually not have a job. I felt for years like that I don't talk about me just being mom because it's not good enough. It's not a good enough career choice or whatever. And I think that's also a big missing link in what we're teaching kids. Like you can be a parent and that's all you need to do while your kids are little. You don't have to have a career. That is a job, and it's very worthy.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about, the community, tying all the community and whatever you want to do with your life and whatever you want your career to be, it's like, well, it starts your first community should be your family. Like, all right, well, what can I do? What's the best, option for my family, and what's the best option for me within my family, and for my wife and my kid, and whatever it might be. Like, what are the best options for all those people, and how can I contribute? Sometimes like raising kids that understand how communities work and how to be a benefit to community. Well, what more of a benefit to a community is there to add more beneficial community members to it? Like, that's a heck of a job. There's a big difference between like, some of the memes around like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, or I'm a stay-at-home dad. Like, I should get paid this much to wash lot. Like, well, no, like that's what you're doing is you're contributing to your community, that nuclear family. Like, what better, asset could you be giving yourself and the people around you than more little human beings that are respectful and can, work hard and that, love their community and try to contribute to it. And it's like, it's not hard to see over the past, 30 years or whatever, how we've gotten to the point we're at, because it's like everyone's been so separated, and it's, there's no, like you said, there's nothing wrong with both parents working and trying to do all those things, but it makes them a lot harder when you work and then you come home and you have a couple hours. You try to sit down and eat with your family, and then it's, well, we got to do this. You got to get your homework done. And then it's bedtime. And then, so you get what, 2 hours a day with your family after you spent 10 hours at work and your kids spent 8 hours at school.
8 hours influenced by all the other kids.
Yeah. With their prison lunches.
Well, and Jess and I work very well together with the business because she's very creative. She has a lot of great ideas. But at this point in our life, of course, if we sent our kids to school, she'd have all day free and she could work for the business. And I'm sure it would be more profitable and all this stuff. But like, I get it. Like, it's more important for us at this point to raise the kids and educate them the way they need to be educated. So that's so I don't want anyone to look at this like, oh, it's no big deal for us. It's like, no, she's sacrificing her everyday hours to educate our kids. We just feel that's more important right now. Someday, when the kids are older and grown, then she'll be free to do whatever. But the whole money thing is not the biggest, most important thing for us right now. It's, I want our kids to be raised and have the understanding we do. And so that's kind of where we're at. She does what she can when she can do it. And I get it. But we work very well as a team. But for now, it's like, yeah, this is what we got to do.
Perpetuating the future.
Yeah. Just we want our kids to be successful someday. And we just feel like this is the best way to do it,
Well, what's the point of being a parent if your kid's not successful?
Yeah. Looking back at it, it's like, I don't know. It was weird because we both went to public school. We both went to college. But now we both like, wait, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I've encountered so many people that were homeschooled or Amish, and I'm like, I admire that. The way their kids behave, the way they act. And we saw almost immediate change with our kids as soon as we took them out of school. They act like us. We're not fighting their goofy buddy, whoever they met at school, whoever that is. Right. They're not acting like them. We're not fighting that attitude. We're not fighting that whatever they're trying to do. Is they're kind of more of a copy of us. And that's what I prefer to see rather than like, wait, what are you doing? What are you saying? I'm not trying to do that. I want you to be a successful person someday and a good person and have a good family. And whatever your little buddy is at 12 at school is doing is not cutting it. That's not what I want you to be like. And so I have no problem pulling him out of that. And, obviously he'll be, our kids will be whatever they want to be someday. But I'm going to give them the most basic background and upbringing that I can, because they'll do whatever they want to do. But I'm going to do my best to make them the best person they can be.
Yeah. That's why I guess I look at that is it's what can I do? We've joked a lot with our daughter. We're like, look, like you didn't have a choice. We kind of did this without your consent. You're here now. Like, you didn't have a choice to be here. That was ours. So like, now what can we do to make your life perpetually, as long as you live, the best, the happiest you could be? Like, so like whatever we can facilitate to like, and if breaking that mold of this is what everybody's supposed to do all the time. You go to school and you go to college and you do this and you get a career and you work, like whatever you want to do, like that's what we want you to do. And we want you to be happy and successful and, following the norm. I mean, we could bring up statistics all day long. They're not getting any better, normal people, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
So like, all right, how do we break that,
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were, I think if you're happy with your life as a parent, then I don't see why you wouldn't want to raise your kid to pattern after that, right? Like, why would you want to send them off somewhere else to where they're going to pattern their life off of something different? So, like, I like our lifestyle, what we do and how we live. And that's what I want to train my kids to learn and do, rather than just leave it up to somebody else or a bunch of other people.
That are probably miserable.
Yeah, because and all the weird stuff you see going on nowadays with the schools, like I don't believe anything unless I see it with my own eyes,
Right.
But there's a lot of weird stuff going on and just not about that. So
Yeah, I hear that. I don't know what much better way to end this than that.
Yeah.
The love for the kids and wanting them to have a good life is what it's all about, and making productive parts of their communities is because you realize that it's Tony and I talked about a lot is if you do something good because it makes you feel good, does that mean it's no longer good because you were doing it because it made you feel good? I don't know, but you're still doing something good for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so win, I guess,
Yeah.
like let's encourage people to do good things for other people.
Yeah, I think if the whole point of the education system was how you can be successful while also benefiting your community, that should be on the walls at every classroom.
But you can't
That's
talk
not
in the
very
lunch
said,
line,
right?
Craig.
Right. Don't network during lunch. Not permitted. Whatever.
That's probably the worst thing you could teach kids.
Yeah.
I just realized that. It's probably the worst thing you
Yeah.
could teach a kid is don't network.
Don't network. Tony, you got some last thoughts?
I do not actually.
Jess, any last words?
Thank you for joining us
Yeah, thank you.
amongst all the reluctancy. We appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, check out the website chronic-curiosity.com to join us at the forum, have some fun, interaction, pick you up a comfy t-shirt, or if you just want to support the show and donate, all that is on the website as well. Thank you. Until next time. See you.